Disney Plus launched yesterday, and I watched The Mandalorian. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
It's a me,
Dario!
Woohoo! Let's go!
All right, so let me just give you a quick reminder so I can get this out of the way. You can listen to the podcast everywhere. iTunes, you can listen to it there. SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Podcast Addict, everywhere. Just type in Super Dario World Podcast. You'll find it right there. Any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can always find me on Instagram, SuperDario_World. Also at Dario the Show, and on Facebook, Super Dario World. So, also, I'm going to be doing Twitch and Mixer. Honestly, this week, I kind of put a pause on all that stuff because it got ahead of me. I have a lot of stuff that I need to get prepped before because I'm going to be off this weekend. I'm going to be off Friday and Monday. I've decided it. I'm not going to do podcasts that day. If I do, maybe if I end up having time tomorrow. I doubt it. It's a busy week for me. I got a lot of stuff to do. And so I might get a chance, might not. But anyway, I'm going to finish up setting up my studio over the next weekend because you know what? It's just too much. It's just too much. I needed a break. It was just stressing me out that I couldn't get things to work. So now I'm just going to put a pause on that for next week. You know, that's going to be my project for next week when I come back. Now, here's one thing that's very important that I wanted to talk about. On a few months ago, when Endgame came out, I decided, you know what? I'm going to do rankings of all the movies in the MCU. Now that Disney Plus came out, all the movies are there. So before I was like, oh man, should I rent one? Should I do this? Should I do that? And then I heard Disney Plus was coming out. I was like, you know what? I'll just wait for that, and I'll watch them there because I'm already planning on getting it. So I'm going to be rewatching all the movies in the MCU, and I will be re-ranking them. I also might be throwing a few tidbits here and there about like, oh well, this is inconsistent here, blah blah. We'll start figuring out if there were a lot of mistakes or if there were moments of genius in them. You know, foreshadowing, as they might say. But yeah, that's going to be my next project there. I'm also going to be doing reviews of The Mandalorian. For those of you who remember, when I did Game of Thrones, I'd like to do it the day after. So The Mandalorian comes out Fridays. Today, the first one was a special occasion. Chapter 1 was a special occasion because it came out on a Tuesday, on the launch of Disney Plus. But the rest of the episodes will be coming out every Friday. So I think I'll just do it on Mondays. I'll just move the rewrite of Game of Thrones to Tuesdays, probably. Even though, now that I think about it, if I've already said I'm going to take Monday off, then that means that I'm already going to delay it. You know what? The next one, I'll review Chapter 2 on Tuesday. And I'm not going to go in too deep. I'm not going to go into too many spoilers. I try to avoid spoilers in general, but there's some things that I kind of have to mention in order for that to make sense. And I'll keep it simple. I'll keep it clean. And it's a great opportunity for the return of something that I used to do. You know, I used to do, for Game of Thrones, after every episode, I used to do a thing I called The Good, the Bad, and the Martin. So in the good, obviously, I mentioned things that I liked. In the bad, I mentioned things that I hate. And the Martin, I just throw in a fun fact of George R. R. Martin, the author of the books. So this is the perfect opportunity for the very first time for The Good, the Bad, and the Mandalorian.
I like those odds.
There you go. There you go. I like those odds too. And actually, I think this one actually fits in a little bit better than Game of Thrones because The Mandalorian is a Western. And so to get started, let's go into the good. So my favorite thing about this show is that it's a sci-fi Western. I love Westerns. In general, I love Westerns. It's a great film style in general. It's a great film genre, and I don't know why it's not used. I mean, I do get why it's not used more. It's because some people say it's dated. It's a bit slow at times, but it has a great build up to things. And so I've always loved Westerns. I love sci-fi. Marrying those two it makes a beautiful baby. Right? I remember the last sci-fi Western, Firefly. People still keep talking about it. I actually recently started rewatching it. It's great. It's just as great as I remember. Might be even better. Anywho, so the good. My favorite thing about the show is its style. It's beautiful. Visually, it's very beautiful. Some of the effects You could tell it's still TV. It's not. It's very close to film quality on the CGI part. The practical effects, it lacks. The puppet things, I felt like it lacked a little bit. It just lacked a little bit. I remember there's the weird bird gobbling thingy that the Jabba had. It looked kind of crappy. And the mask the guy had in the planet when he helps out the Mandalorian, it doesn't look great. It could have done better. So the practical stuff I felt was lacking. Everything else, beautiful. The sets, the colors, the shots, everything. It looked beautiful. It's a very, very, very good looking show. It has great style. I like the fact that the dude's trying to like build his own armor. It's almost like an RPG game. Like, all right, I'm gonna build a new piece of armor, and I look cool. It was actually one thing that I mentioned to the person that I was watching it with, and it was like, dude, I love how it's a mismatched armor. You know, the helmet doesn't match the pauldrons. It doesn't match the gloves. Things don't match. And then slowly you get a scene where he starts kind of building his armor, and you're like, oh my God, that's cool. He's like building himself. That's like a video game. That's great. So I really like that. It's great. The story is very, very interesting, and it's building up to something. We're not exactly sure what. It's a little bit confusing, but I like that overall. Very interesting story. Very beautiful to look at, and compelling characters, very interesting characters, a very interesting world. Honestly, we're actually getting to see a bit of the Star Wars universe, how rich it is, actually. Now, I'm a little bit worried because one planet seemed very similar to another at one point, the Cantinas, but I'm guessing if you're colonizing, you're going to try to keep certain things similar. I don't know. I'll wait to see the other planets. But overall, very, very good, very, very interesting. Great setup for the future of the franchise. Looks very, very interesting. Now, let's move on to the bad. Wow, that's shooting. There you go. So, the bad here was I had issues with the big fight scene. Now, the action in the beginning is fine. Those fights were reasonable. The standoffs were pretty cool. But I had an issue with the fight at the end. And so, to me, it felt kind of ridiculous in a way. And I can explain it. They did something that I completely hate. And the rest of the stuff, and by that I mean when the dude uses his grappling hook, I guess the grappling hook, to pull away the machine gun and just runs towards it and spins and shoots. It's a cool concept. It just looked very slow. And so to me, I was like, oh, that seemed kind of cartoony. So I went back and looked at the director's, his IMDb, his history, and it just what I expected. The guy directed he's directed a whole bunch of Star Wars Clone Wars episodes. He's directed a lot of Star Wars stuff, but the animated world. So to me, I guess that in his head, while he was writing it, he was like, okay, he's going to do this, and boom, this is how it's going to look. It's a lack of experience thing. Cartoon characters are way faster than real human characters, right? So if you're writing that he's going to do this and jump in that, it kind of looks a little slow, and it's a little bit ridiculous that moving so slow, nobody shot him. Also, I hated that nobody flanked them. I mean, if you're being gunned down by a machine gun and you're being pinned down, anybody who's ever played paintball or anything knows that you flank them. You got to flank them. And nobody was moving in to flank them, especially when you have the advantage in numbers. You can flank them on both sides. Also, nobody threw a grenade. Really? Nobody? And also, I had an issue with, again, this big-ass blaster. They're shooting at them, and they're behind a pillar. And the pillar's basically holding. I mean, later on, we saw the exact same blaster destroy a blast door. What's stronger? Like, what the hell was that pillar made of? What the hell kind of concrete was that? Or how crappy was that door? So those are just logistic stuff that bother me. I get it. It could have been that, that they had a lower intensity on that blaster, specifically because they did not want to harm the building in the back because that's where they had their prize. It could be. It's possible. To me, it just seemed kind of ridiculous. And the one thing that I did hate, and this, it just makes my blood boil when I watch stuff like this. There was a point where the Mandalorian and the droid they're running through a door, and the door opens up behind them, and a guy walks out, and he kind of like pushes the Mandalorian, or he tries to grab him and misses, and so the Mandalorian takes him down. And to me, I'm ripping my hair, so I was like, you had him! You were behind, and you're the one guy who comes out without a weapon? Like, there's a shootout. There's a shootout going on, and this dude walks out barehanded. Are you kidding me? You know what I'd do if I heard a whole bunch of shots coming in on my base? I'd find a weapon. Or you know what I'd do if I didn't find a weapon? I'd keep my head down, you know? So stuff like that bugs me. And it's such a simple fix. They've shown multiple times that that the Mandalorian gets shot. And he's wearing armor, so some of the shots bounce off. Which, honestly, it's pretty cool. It's pretty effective. They could have just done that he shot him in the head or something, and the Mandalorian does a cool move and shoots him. Something. Or, he tries to, instead of, trying to push him, he actually tries to grab him or something. It bugs me. It bugs me when they do that because it's like, man, plot armor. That guy's got plot armor. Not only does he have kick-ass Mandalorian armor, he's also got plot armor. So that's not cool. But I guess it's forgivable because let's assume that guy was drunk. Let's just assume that, or he was an idiot, or he was, too ballsy, or just he didn't think. He just saw somebody like, and dead. So it bugged me a little. Overall, it wasn't enough for me to actually be like, this is garbage, like sometimes Game of Thrones did. But no, it was good. So just taking away those two minor facts, and one was big, the other ones were minor. Take those away, and the show was great. Now let's move on to The Mandalorian. Full clip there. Now, what can I do here? Because I can't really go into fun facts of George Lucas. I mean, I could, but I just said it. You know what? Let's give you a little bit of context of what The Mandalorian is. And on this morning, Eddie was breaking down the episode. He wasn't really breaking it down. He was just giving some thoughts. And Thor asked a question that I thought was one of the dumbest questions ever asked. But, you never know. Thor asked, why do they call him the Mandalorian? And the answer to that is because they're from the planet Mandalore. In certain aspects of science fictions, humans are called Terrans because we're from Earth. In Spanish, Earth is tierra, la tierra, and so that's why, because of the Latin, stuff like that. Anywho, so, or Martians. I should have just gone with Martians. Or how you call Martians? Why you call Martians Martians? Because they're from Mars. Anyway, same thing. Mandalorians, they're from Mandalore. Now, let's go a little bit into the story of Mandalore. Mandalore used to be a very, very, very respected planet and had some of the most kick-ass warriors in all the galaxy. Now, these warriors fought against the Jedi several times, and at one point were even able to storm the Jedi Temple. Now, why were they able to do this and how it's debatable. I'm not going to get too into it. The point is that they were really, really kick-ass, badass warriors. And the problem was that they were so warmongering that led to a huge civil war that kind of devastated their planet. And so they decided, you know what? This is blown. This is bullcrap. We can't keep killing each other. We can't keep living like this. This sucks. So they started becoming, peaceful. But however, they still had a group of warriors that were like, no, we don't want to be peaceful yet. This is not our way. We're warriors. And so those warriors, since they lost the Civil War, they were sent to exile to the moon to Mandalore's moon called Concordia. Now, there's a lot of very interesting characters and a lot of interesting events that happen in this timeline because that's the events of the Clone Wars. There's a character, the leader pretty much of Mandalore is called Duchess Satine. She and Obi-Wan Kenobi have a very interesting relationship. We might get into that in a different segment of the Mandalorian, the good, the bad, and the Mandalorian. I'll save that one for later. There's a time where Darth Maul actually comes into control of the planet, but the point is that during the Clone Wars, it was also kind of a period of internal civil war, which I guess all civil wars are internal, that ended up with one of the sisters, the sister of Duchess Satine, being the one who's in control of the planet. Afterwards, after she was in control, and what's her name? Christ. Her last name is Christ. So I forget the Bo-Katan Christ. That's who ended up in control of the planet. However, during the events, during the days of the Empire, the planet was taken control of by a clan called the Saxons. Why? Because Duchess Bo-Katan did not really agree with Palpatine on the Galactic Empire, and she refused to follow their lead. So the Empire gave a whole bunch of funds and support to the Saxon clan, and Bo-Katan Kryze, and she was, supplanted. So what happened there is a few years before the events, I think it was 2 years before the events of A New Hope, another civil war started, and that civil war ended ended after, I think, the Return of the Jedi, if I'm not mistaken. The years there are murky because honestly, it's the timeline for this period is weird because it started a new period. Like before the Battle of Yavin, there's time before and there's time after that. It's really weird. So honestly, I've been trying to follow it. It's given me a headache. Doesn't matter. The point is, Mandalore had yet another civil war, and the time period for the show is pretty unclear. I think it's the period between after the death of the Empire. You can tell it's after the Empire has fallen because they say the Empire doesn't exist anymore. But I think it's before the rise of the First Order. So it's in a very murky gray area where we actually don't really know what's happening to Mandalore. And that's what makes the show more interesting because there's theories. I think it's possible that the Civil War is still going on. I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not really sure. They haven't really mentioned it. And by the way that they treat the Mandalorians in this show, it doesn't seem like it's completely over yet. It's weird. Like I said, it's very murky territory. It's very weird, but it's an interesting time period nonetheless. It's a very interesting planet. It's a very, very interesting planet. Their armors are cool looking, and I just get more and more excited the deeper and deeper that they take us into this universe because it doesn't seem like they're playing with kid gloves. Like, the show's not really bloody, but it's violent, and it's not really for kids. Like I said, kind of violent. So I'm excited, man. I'm very excited, and I had this just one extra tidbit. This does have nothing to do with a Mandalorian fun facts. Now that you know their history a little bit, and you know a little bit of what's going on, at the end of it, tell me. I talked about this with Eddie. At the end of the show, at the end of this episode, this might be a spoiler, all right? Spoiler, even though it's already been spoiled, but whatever. I'm going to... Spoiler alert. At the end of the episode, the Mandalorian ends up with a baby Yoda type. Well, the baby Yoda. I don't really know Yoda species, but I'm going to just call him Baby Yoda. He ends up with a baby Yoda and a droid. And the droid says that, all right, the contract said to terminate him. However, the Mandalorian's contract said to bring him in alive. So what I told Eddie was like, all right, did they lie to him? Or did somebody else contract the droid to go and capture the baby Yoda? So, I don't know. I think somebody else sent another contract. However, you never know. Maybe I missed something. If you notice something, let me know. Or let me know who you agree with. Do you think it was Eddie who was like, I don't know, I think it was the same one? Honestly, I don't think Eddie had thought about that. But I think it adds a little bit extra element to it. It's weird that they didn't really highlight it at all. But I guess it's better. Some things are better left unsaid. Anywho, overall, so if I'm going to overall give a grade to this particular episode, whoa, too hot. First episodes are hard. I've always said the beginning of a story and the end of a story are the two hardest parts. So, overall, the character is very interesting. He has a lot of bad luck with animals. That's another fun fact. Mandalorian, hated by animals. Every single animal that showed up here pretty much attacked him. Giant walruses and whatever that weird fat T-Rex was. But like I said, very interesting setup, slow, but it's a Western. Again, it's a Western style. So overall, I'm really enjoying it, and I think it can only go up from here. It's set up enough so that it can go higher and higher, and I'm excited for it. So I like this. I'm going to continue doing this. Let me know what you think. As always, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram, at SuperDario_World. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again tomorrow.